The shadow of Ravenswood. Ravenswood, a small English town, was never the same after the children disappeared. It was as if the very fabric of the town had been torn apart, leaving behind a sense of unease and dread. The wind whispered an eerie chant, and the townsfolk feared an ancient evil had awakened, one that had been lying dormant for centuries. Dr. Elliot Thompson, a renowned occult expert, arrived in Ravenswood to investigate the strange occurrences. He was fascinated by the whispering wind and spent hours deciphering its meaning. The townsfolk were wary of him, but they hoped he could uncover the truth behind the disappearances. As the days passed, Dr. Thompson's behavior became increasingly erratic. He claimed to have uncovered a dark secret and became convinced the children were still alive, trapped in a realm beyond the living. He spent every waking moment researching, poring over ancient texts and seeking out local legends. The townsfolk grew concerned, but Dr. Thompson was undeterred. One night, he disappeared, leaving behind scattered belongings and torn notes. The townsfolk searched for him, but he was nowhere to be found. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. On the 10th night, the horror was unleashed. The wind howled, and the children reappeared, their eyes black as coal, skin deathly pale, and smiles twisted. They moved with an unnatural gait, like puppets on strings. The townsfolk tried to run, but the children surrounded them, their black eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. As the night wore on, the townsfolk disappeared, dragged away by the children. When the sun rose, Ravenswood was empty, its streets and houses silent. The wind continued to whisper its eerie chant, and the children patrolled the streets, waiting for the next group of adventurers. Years passed, and Ravenswood became a ghost town, a place of dark legend. Brave adventurers occasionally ventured into the town, seeking to uncover its secrets, but none returned. The wind and the children remained, waiting patiently for their next victims. Years later, a group of brave adventurers decided to explore the abandoned town. They discovered Dr. Thompson's research, his notes scattered everywhere, and his books lay open, as if he had just stepped away. As they read, the wind began to howl, and the chanting grew louder. The children appeared, their black eyes glowing, and the adventurers tried to fight, but they were no match for the children and Dr. Thompson, who had become a puppet of the ancient evil. One by one, the adventurers disappeared, dragged away into the darkness. But one adventurer, Sarah, managed to escape. She had been separated from her group and had hidden in the woods, watching in horror as her friends were dragged away. Sarah knew she had to warn others about Ravenswood, about the horror that lurked in the shadows. Sarah spent years researching, trying to find a way to defeat the ancient evil. She scoured ancient texts, seeking out rituals and incantations that could banish the evil back to hell. She spoke to local experts, seeking out knowledge and guidance. And finally, she founded a ritual to banish the evil back to the depths of hell. Sarah returned to Ravenswood, alone and afraid, but determined. She performed the ritual, and as she did, the wind began to howl, and the chanting grew louder. But this time it was different. This time, the chanting was a cry of defeat, a cry of rage as the ancient evil was banished back to the depths of hell. As the sun rose the next morning, Ravenswood was silent once more, a silence of peace, a silence of freedom from the horror that had lurked in the shadows for so long. The children were gone, and the wind whispered no more secrets in the darkness. Sarah had saved Ravenswood, had saved the living from the dead. And as she walked away from the town, she knew she had finally found redemption, finally found peace. The shadow of Ravenswood was no more, and the town could begin to heal. The townsfolk returned, and the town was rebuilt. The streets were once again filled with laughter and children's play. The wind still whispered, but it was a gentle whisper, a reminder of the horrors that had been overcome. Sarah walked away from Ravenswood, knowing that she would always carry the scars of her experiences with her. But she also knew that she had found a new sense of purpose. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious, and she knew that she could overcome anything that came her way. As she walked, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she had saved Ravenswood, and that the town was finally free from the horror that had lurked in the shadows for so long. She walked for hours, the sun beating down on her, until she came to a small village. She stopped at the local inn, exhausted, and asked for a room. As she lay in bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She looked around the room, but there was no one there. Suddenly, she heard a faint whispering in her ear. "You may have saved Ravenswood, but the horror is not yet defeated." Sarah sat up in bed, her heart racing. "Who are you?" she demanded. There was no answer, but the whispering continued. "The ancient evil may have been banished, but its followers remain. They will seek revenge, and they will not rest until they have claimed your soul." Sarah knew that she had to be vigilant. She had saved Ravenswood, but the battle was far from over. She would have to be prepared to face the followers of the ancient evil, and to fight to protect herself and the people she loved. And so, Sarah's journey continued. She traveled the land, seeking out the followers of the ancient evil and fighting to defeat them. She became a legendary warrior, known throughout the land for her bravery and her determination. And though the horror of Ravenswood was never far from her mind, she knew that she had found a new sense of purpose. She had saved Ravenswood, and she would continue to fight to protect the world from the forces of darkness. The story of Sarah and Ravenswood became a legend, told and retold around campfires and in hushed whispers. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, and that one person can make a difference in the fight against evil.